You probably prefer to have motivated people working for you. And that's understandable because, when people are motivated, they are normally present, they are not absent, they work harder. I'm not going to start again with the extra mile here, but of course, many people immediately think of walking the extra mile for the client, et cetera, et cetera. You want motivated people because when motivation is high, you have a low employee turnover and a higher productivity. And that means more profit for the organization. The question is, how do you motivate people? And when you talk about benefits for your employees, what is an aspect that truly motivates people? And just this week, I gave a couple of speeches here at the fair. It's called Future HR, not only about HR, but how to develop organizations here in Northern Germany, in Hamburg. I was booked in Stuttgart for the South Conference, and now it's the Northern Conference, and I'm also booked in September in Cologne, which is Europe's largest conference to develop organizations and develop people. And of course, we had discussions after the talk I gave, and we talked about benefits. And I have to say, some of the phrases I heard from leaders were, I have to be very straightforward here, utterly shocking. Utterly shocking. When we talk about how to motivate people and if you need benefits or not, if you need it or not is a question where I honestly thought we're not going to talk about that anymore, but obviously we do, at least in certain organizations, because we now have to look into what are the problems and then, of course, how to do it better. And a couple of the problems which I saw, especially today, again, were that benefits often are ignored. People say it's post-pandemic, we are a strong brand, which means you believe you're a strong brand if you really are. Debatable at best, because often you think you are more well-known than many people think. Even when you are known within your industry, it does not mean that people know you all over the place. Probably they know you on a regional level, but not more than that. So benefits are ignored. And some people really said, we are a strong brand. People want to work for us. We don't need benefits. You can either apply or you can leave. At the same time, people said, oh, we have less quality applicants. We have a lot of applicants that don't fit to our profile, but they want to work for us for different reasons. However, we don't find the right people. We get a lot of applications, or at least enough, but not from the right people. Well, and at the same time, you say you don't need benefits. The next problem is that benefits are often generalized. So you either have a catalog where people can choose from certain objects, or you simply have a present that anyone gets. So, for example, and I give you an example from real world practice here. At one of my clients, and that happened before the pandemic, for birthday, you always got the same present. You got a bottle of wine, flowers, of course, and a greeting card signed by the CEO and the board. And one long-term employee took this bottle of wine and put it, without any comment, put it back on the table of HR. And then, of course, this behavior made the round, and people said, very unthankful, ungrateful, arrogant, why do you do that, et cetera, et cetera. And another employee who worked there for decades said, I don't think it's arrogant. Probably you should know, and if you would care, you had known that he's a former alcoholic, a former addict to alcohol. So putting a bottle of wine on that person's table is probably the worst thing you can do. However, some people just don't care. But in this case, not the employee, it's the leaders who did not care. So when you see that benefits are just generalized, that cannot be the solution. On the other hand, of course, you will say when an organization has a certain size, you cannot serve anyone's personal wishes person by person. Well, we have to see how far can we go to meet people's needs. All people, and that's the third aspect of the problem, people give benefits which are no benefits. When I talk today about how to recruit properly, sustainable recruiting, sustainable leadership, I, of course, looked at job ads. And one job ad said, in the category of benefits, what do we offer for you? What do we offer for you was, there were a couple of things, which was about payment and logistics and travel cards, all quite nice. But one point was, we offer a position where it is possible to have a satisfactory business and private life. Wow. How very grateful. People are allowed to have a private life with you. Wow. Amazing, isn't it? Well, actually, it's not. It's utterly shocking. So now we have to see now how to do it better, because we see that with benefits, there's something deeply wrong in many organizations, because many people say, yeah, we have some benefits, but they don't really motivate me for different reasons. So step number one, when you talk about how to give benefits, first you have to say, when do people get benefits? Then why do they get it? And then, of course, who gets the benefits? And by the way, the smaller the group is you give these benefits to, the more you have to justify why you pick that group. You cannot say, well, we give benefits to sales because, they're salespeople. That's not a reason. There are other people who do valuable work in your organization, and they are as valuable as the sales team. So you really need to justify what you do there. And then, of course, you have to decide how, in which form, in which way do you give these benefits. When you've done so, you at least have a good starting point. But now, of course, you have to see when it comes to setting lines, or you draw lines somewhere in the sand where you say, when you cross that line, you get the benefit. Always be aware that you should not take numbers. And you might be surprised when you know me well that I am now advocating for this. Don't pick numbers on a too strict measurement, because when people meet the goal by 99.95%, and then you say, for example, especially in German organizations, you see that suddenly someone says, well, here is your Amazon coupon or whatever benefit you give them. And you say, it's worth 45 euros and 42 cents or whatever the legally allowed motivational fee per month, which is tax deductible for the organization now is. Employees immediately realize when you only give them what you can make tax deductible. And they say, well, your interest is not really to motivate me. Your interest is to save taxation. And then maybe on top of that, have a bit of an advantage, which might come with a bit of more motivation from me if you're lucky. But when people see that you look at the second digit after the dot, after the point, and you say, well, we really have to go by the penny or the cent, then people say, well, your focus is more on probably bookkeeping than on motivation. I give you an example how to do it better. There's a large German advertising agency, actually the second largest one in the country right now, or one of the largest in the country right now. And one employee had a jubilee. He was there for a couple of years, not 20 years, not 15 years, shorter than that. So you can guess how many years. And on LinkedIn, you saw that the CEO decided to fulfill him a wish. He knew that this man always wanted to go to the Caribbean with his family, but with his position, he was unable to afford that because 2 adults, 3 children, flights back and forth, that is expensive. So he decided to to give them a travel, 1 week in the Caribbean, 5,000 euros. There is no way how in Germany you can put that into your taxes. The organization pays for it and is fully aware of the fact that this money is, in high commas, gone. Means you can't make it tax deductible because this trip to the Caribbean is not a business trip. So it is very important that you see there are organizations who say, when it comes to motivation, it is more important for us to do something rather than saving taxes. However, some people still struggle when they say, well, is it a benefit or is it not? How do I know if it's a benefit or not? And there is a principle which you can use. And this principle helps you to see if it is a benefit or not. So let's say you give them a benefit. So for example, you say, we offer you a rail network travel card because you travel for us and you can use it also in your private time. We pay for it. And then people will say, well, that sounds nice. And now here comes the situation, how we can figure out if it is a benefit or not. You take your benefit or the alleged benefit and you turn it around into a negative. And then you come to 2 conclusions. And one of them shows you that it is a benefit. So let's say you say the benefit is a rail travel card, which you can also use in your private life. It's fully flexible and available for any employee. The negative would be you do not offer a rail travel card, where many people would say, oh, that's a pity. And when you say it's a pity, what a pity not to have that, then you offer a real benefit. However, when you, for example, say, we offer you an approach of work that you have private life, where people would say, oh, wow, how generous. If you put that into a negative, you come to the conclusion that people would say, well, you offer a job which has no approach to private life, and that's an effrontery, that's an impertinence, that is plain ridiculous. And when you come to the conclusion that it is an effrontery or an impertinence, then you know this is not a benefit. And especially there are certain benefits which still companies advertise, which really became an alarm sign for many people. So I give you an example. Some companies still say, we have a basket of fruit every week, a new basket of fruit. And many people say, look, this is a warning sign on many levels for a very simple reason, because when you say it's a benefit to have a bunch of fruit in the office, how bad is your payment? How bad are the salaries of your employees when people are unable to afford their own fruit? Because when you pay us well, we can afford our own fruit and bring them to the office. So be aware that people have very fine-tuned perception of what you communicate in job ads or with your recruiting agency or whichever means of recruiting you use. It is very important that you use this principle of putting things into a negative. When you say it's a pity, it's a real benefit. When you say it's an impertinence, an effrontery, then it's not a benefit. So be aware of what you put out there. The orientation of any benefit always has to be aligned with the inner mission of your people. And there's a very simple principle. Asking questions doesn't cost you anything. If you really care about your people, you will find out as soon as they trust you, of course, and you have good leadership. That is the prerequisite. People will tell you what they like, what their hobbies are, what their dreams are. And then you can align your motivational actions, your benefits, according to their inner mission. Of course, when you now say, hey, our organization is too large for that, well, maybe it's better to give something than nothing. However, if you give something which doesn't really motivate people, and I give you an example of what I got in my business life. There was one time when I worked for a pharmaceutical company. I had two bosses. One was great, the other one not so much. And because I met my sales goal, I got one of these vouchers. And first, I was aware of the fact that these vouchers were given for free to the organization for advertising anyway. So it wasn't that they invested in something. These vouchers were available for free. And giving them away as a benefit is quite an impertinence already. But then someone says, well, here is your voucher for a wellness day in, and then there was a city close to Bremen, which was about a 200-mile trip for me, 200 miles away. Besides the fact that, of course, I can do wellness trips if I want to, but I want to decide when I do them. And I didn't plan to do it next month, but the coupon was only valid until the end of next month. So I don't want to be pressured to do wellness. And then I was called ungrateful because I said, this coupon doesn't motivate me. And then my former boss said, well, you're ungrateful. No, I'm not. You do not determine what motivates me. Asking people what motivates them is the easiest way how to find their motivational triggers, their motivational switches that you can create a more motivated, a higher motivated workforce. So ask these questions. And of course, you cannot talk to absolutely anyone when you have a large organization, but you have a structure of leaders that are below you on a hierarchical level. So ask their department leaders, their team leads. They should ask these questions and really see. And of course, you have to gain their trust first. What does motivate people? And when you really align your gifts, your presence, or simply your benefits along the inner mission of your employees, you will have a way higher motivation, which has many benefits, which I mentioned in the first place. And of course, that always adds to the bottom line of the organization. Of course, there's more about this, and I published an article and more about this. If you go to expert.nb-networks.com, feel free to put your email address in there. Every Wednesday, you receive one email where everything that I published during the week before is available. Free access. It's 100% content, no advertising, so it's always ad-free guarantee. Feel free to put in your email address in there and you stay up to date. Of course, when you now say, hey, I got a question, just feel free to drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com. Of course, when you want to talk about training, speaking, coaching, consulting, mentoring, or maybe project interim management, or you need someone to host your event as an MC, compare, however you want to call it, I'm happy to do that as well. But if you just want to have a chat, let's take it from there. It doesn't cost you a penny. nb@nb-networks.com. Let's have a chat, because motivating your employees is probably one of the most important aspects to keep them in your organization and to develop them to a level where you say that is the best they can do to serve your organization, while you at the same time as a leader serve your employees. And now the most important part is that you apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change in your organization that probably or most likely you want to see, because there's a reason you listen to this podcast. And most likely it is because you say, well, I think we can optimize and I think we should do something about that. I wish you all the best. Always happy to help you. Drop me a line if you want to have a chat. And for this week, there's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.